Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with the Last Huntsman channel here, and I usually don't bring you guys into my house, but well, for this video I'm going to, because it's kind of a how-to video. But in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how I am going to change out my sights on my Henry rifle. The Henry rifle we're using is the model H001. It's just their basic little .22 rifle, and I got it not too long ago, and I absolutely love the thing. I have a lot of fun with it. It's super accurate, but I'm not super impressed with these sights. These sights are kind of very, well, crude and standard, and I mean especially these rear sights. So let's get started and let's change out some sights on this rifle. Alright, so first of all, we're going to ensure our weapon is safe. I'm going to just open the lever here. It's going to work a few times. Obviously nothing's coming out, but just for all the super safety Sally's saying, you're going to need to do this anyways. For doing this, let's just take this tube out. It is as safe as it's going to be right now. Alright, real quick, I'm just going to go over some of the tools I'm going to be using. Obviously, you're going to need your new sight set right off the bat. The sights I'm going with is the HIVIZ sights. Now, you might ask, well, why aren't you going with the Skinner sights? You know, those are a lot more precise than, you know, a modified buckhorn and such. But the reason why I'm going with these HIVIZ sights is, one, I really like these high visibility fiber optics, but two, I have not totally ruled out the option of scoping this rifle, and if I have a Skinner sight on there, then especially what I'm leaning towards is a quick detach scope. As you can see, that would be your sight picture. Pretty nice. But moving on, my sight's out of the way. You're going to need a screwdriver, something with a small head on it. You're going to need a really tiny ass, I don't even know exactly the size, and so you'll have to kind of play around and find which size will fit into these. But just a real small Allen tool, a brass punch, and a small hammer. Ideally, like a small mallet with like a rubber or plastic head would be best. I live in a small town and couldn't find anything anywhere here. Well, I live way out in the country, but the closest town is a small town, and couldn't find anything anywhere, so I found this cheap little chintzy hammer. But that's what I'm going to try to use. But that's what you'll need. Alright, so first we're going to switch out this front sight. It's actually the really easy part, and it's just basically two flathead screws, but we're going to have to remove this. Now I know you might have to put your finger over muzzle just a little bit just to get the leverage. You need to take that off because it is real snug, but it just slides off. But for all the safety Sallies, we've already weapons checked this several times. I'm sure it's not going to be enough for, you know, some of the people, but whatever. Now, there is two screws in this. There's one on top and one on this band here. You're going to take your little screwdriver here and remove both of them. And it is wise to retain these because your HIVIZ sight, if I recall right, does not come with a spare set on its own. So I'm going to set them aside, and these are interchangeable, so either screw will fit either way, so that's not necessarily important on which way you go with them. I got that loose. I'm going to just slide the whole side off and retain that other little screw. Alright, so now we're going to put our HIVIZ sight on. You're just going to simply slide it back over your rifle in two, line it up, and you'll see the hole obviously line up in there. Now I've noticed my HIVIZ sight is a little on the tight side, so I found that if I just take my screwdriver and just slightly pry this open, it slides on just a little easier without marring anything up. Alright, so I have my two little tiny screws here with my screwdriver to attach these back on. However, for my own sanity, I got just a little bit of blue Loctite, and I'm going to just put the littlest little dab on each one of these just to really secure these down. Make sure they're not going to hop out on me, and I will get a little bit of blue Loctite on my fingers trying to do this, I'm sure. It's just part of the gig, I suppose. Slide that back down in there. Tighten this one on. Getting this one on top of the barrel lineup sometimes a little tricky. There we go. Now I'm not gonna like super torque down on these because these little screws are kind of chintzy, so you know, be careful with them to say the least. Now I'm gonna insert this little screw here, and I'm gonna put my screwdriver in and give that tube band just a little bit of a squeeze just to get it started. Now this one you really don't want to torque down too much because it can bind up your tube. Alright, so this is where we install the rear sight, and I have my vise set up on my bench here, and here, I'll show you guys real quick. Alright, so obviously you don't want your vise just straight on your rifle, so I got some leather gloves, a good towel, and I put this little bottle of lighter fluid so my rifle actually sits down in there and doesn't want to fall all the way through. But let's set this rifle in here. Alright, so when setting this rifle in this vise, we're going to want the dovetail and rear sight kind of in the focal point on this. So I'm going to tighten this guy up. Alright, so we got this thing in the vise. Now one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this sight all the way that I can through the buckhorn. And if all possible here, take the buckhorn all the way out by just sliding out all the way through back. Now, to prevent this thing from scratching up my barrel as I'm sliding it through the dovetail, I'm going to slide this fine cloth underneath my rear sight here. Being a little bit of a bastard. Alright. Now that I have that, there's one little screw on top of here. I thought it was the same Allen head as the HIVIZ, but it's not. It's a little tiny screwdriver, and so I got this little micro head here. I'm just going to screw this all the way out. Set it off to the side. Now I'm just going to take my punch with my itty bitty little hammer here. I'm going to try not to hit my barrel. And I'm just going to try to drive this sight out. push it all the way through. And there you go. Now your dovetail is exposed. Now, you're going to take your HIVIZ sight and get it started into the dovetail. This thing actually slid just right in there. I'm going to try to center this the best that I can. Now the advantage about the HIVIZ one is there's an Allen right on top here, and you can loosen that up and make your windage adjustments without even ever having to mess with this dovetail slot. And the same thing for your elevation. There's just an Allen sticking straight up right here that as you screw it in, it'll raise it up. So at this point we can just go ahead and torque this little guy down. I'm going to make sure I'm about as centered as I can be. Make sure I got this torqued down. Slide out my towel. And now I have a HIVIZ slot. Or a slot. Now I have a HIVIZ rear sight on my Henry. Alright, so as you guys can see, kind of, these HIVIZ sights actually lend themselves to quite a bit more. If I could line them back up again, it's hard to do this one-handed and holding the camera. But quite a bit more precise shooting than just the original factory sights, and they're obviously a lot more higher visibility. Alright, so now that I have these HIVIZ sights attached onto my, or mounted onto my little Henry H001 here, we obviously can't put new sights on it without shooting it, right? Just looking through them already, I've noticed a few other advantages other than the fact that they're high visibility sights. Is that the fact that they actually, the notch, the rear notch back here in the buckhorn style sight is actually a lot more finer and more precise for this front sight than the original Henry sights were. And so I could already tell that this is going to be a better shooting deal. And now let's just get trying it, alright? Well, she's quite a shooter. I like it a lot. Now, like I said, the reason why I didn't go with the Skinner sights is because one, it was just seemed like it was a lot of problems. Either the front sight wouldn't align, or you'd had to do some gunsmithing for a certain model of theirs, and I just didn't want to, jack with my receiver too much, for one, and two, I'm actually kind of potentially leaning on mounting a scope on here, but having some quick detach rings so I could pop the whole scope off and have my backup iron sights. I haven't decided what I was going to do with that yet, because quite frankly, this little rifle is very accurate as is, and even changing these sights out, I was quite amazed that I didn't have to make so many adjustments. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty good at eyeballing and getting everything straight, but I didn't have to make hardly any adjustments. It was pretty much a perfect 6 o'clock zero right off the bat, so I'm glad for that. And I've already killed some squirrels with this, with just iron sights, so I think I may leave it as is and maybe eventually scope it. I'm kind of curious to scope it just because it is so accurate. I'm kind of eager to see what its full potential is with a scope on it. But with all that being said, get out there, have fun, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless, and carry on.